Welcome to Figure Feedback. My name is Jeremy, and today I want to talk about this new feature that Flashforge just introduced in Flash Studio, the latest version of it, which is 1.7.7, and it is some kind of variation on full spectrum 3D printing that they're calling color mixing. And I actually have a color mixing model that's printing right now here on the Flashforge Creator 5. Now, if you're not familiar with full spectrum, it's kind of all the rage these days. It's like the next big thing that was really made popular with the Snapmaker U1. And generally what it is, it allows you to take 4 different color filaments, and by combining those colors on top of each other in very thin layers, for example, like a 0.08 millimeter layer height, you're able to achieve a wider spectrum of colors that are completely different than what you're actually printing with. So for example, if you're going to be using CMYK filaments, even though there's no green in that mix, you will be able to mix those appropriate filaments in order to have a model that comes out looking green. And it's able to do that by kind of tricking your eyes in a way, because those layers are so thin and they are sandwiched on top of each other. As you look at them, the layer lines get a little bit blurred and you're able to see the resulting new color that was the result of that color mixing. Now, when I booted up Flash Studio and saw that this was available, I really wanted to check it out and see how it was going to work. And at first blush, it looks a little less refined, a little less user-friendly even than what you would get with full spectrum on the Snapmaker U1, or even the version that Bamboo Studio has for the Bamboo Lab printers, but it's still functional. So let me real quick just kind of show you what that looks like, and then we'll come back to this and I'll show you a few things that I've done so far. All right, so here we are in Flash Studio, and I just have a Benchy right here on the build plate. And I'm going to show you how this color mixing works roughly. I don't have it all down, but here's how it works in general. So as you can see right here on the left side, I have all of the filaments that I currently have loaded up into the printer. Now, one kind of a weird thing that I saw about this so far is when you decide to mix your filaments, you have to make sure that the filaments that you're using are all the same. And I don't just mean make sure that they're all PLA or they're all PETG. I mean, if one of these says Flashforge High Speed PLA, then they all have to also say Flashforge High Speed PLA. They can't be generic high speed PLA. For some reason, if you do that, then the slicer will tell you that that filament is not compatible with this mix. Hopefully they can update that in the future. But here's how it works. So let's say I just want to add color. So I just click this button, and it brings up this box here that says pick from the current filament gamut. The dialog previews the closest 2-color, 3-color, or 4-color filament mixer recipe before it's added. Now, if you don't really want to get deep into this, you can go down here at the exact preset mixes. And these are the colors that you can pick that are pretty much identical to what you would get based on the filaments that you have already loaded, which means if you wanted to have this particular green, it says requested here, then when it takes into consideration the filaments that you have loaded up in the printer, then this is what it is going to create, which is pretty much identical. You could try to get something completely different. You see here we have this other um, menu here that I'm sure that you're familiar with. But let's just say if I wanted to do like a deep red and I'm like, okay, that's what I want, and I hit OK, then it will tell you, even though you requested this deep red, based on the filaments that are loaded into the printer, this is the best that it's going to be able to do. This is what it's going to be able to create. So it's not like you're going to be able to create every shade of color that you can imagine. It's going to get as close as it can. And if you are too far off the mark, it's just going to tell you, like, no, I'm sorry. I just cannot do this. So because I have essentially what would be considered CMYK already in the printer, I'm not sure if there's going to be an exact color that I can choose that it would just tell me, no, I can't do that. But that is what it's going to tell you if you have if you're just way off the mark in what you're requesting and what it can create. So let's just say I wanted to do this green right here. All right. So I would say, okay. And then this is going to pop up. And it shows that in order to achieve this color, it's going to be using this yellow filament here. It has F1, which is basically filament 1, F2, which is filament 2, and then F4, which is filament 4, and that's going to be in white. You can click right here, and as you can see, like they still have to tweak this because the text just sort of covering over each other. But you can click that and you'll come up with this triangle with all these gradients here. And you can just tweak the value of this in order to get the type of shade that you want. But this is the shade that I'm going to be going with. Now, if you want to implement this, you see where it says mixed filament 5, you literally have to press 5 on your keyboard when you have this model selected in order for it to make that particular color. But you also will notice that it didn't import that particular filament up here in your filament menu. And that's something that I wish that they would implement in the future, just so you can have this mix already up there. All right. So as you can see, it's going to use these colors in order to create this particular model here. And you should also lower the layer height to 0.08. That's going to make the most seamless color transitions. And if you wanted to tweak this even more, let's just say that if I wanted to like get rid of this white, and let's just say I just wanted to do if I just wanted to do this magenta instead, I can go ahead and click that, and then you can see the colors that it has already decided to change up. I can click 5, and this is the mixed filament that it would now create if I decided to just go with this particular value. I can go back to F4 and do this again, and then that's how we're going to get back to the green that we originally selected. But you will see that if I change this Flashforge high speed PLA to like generic high speed PLA, and then I try to change it here, you see down at the bottom where it says consumable types are inconsistent. Please add consumables of the same type. So that's what I was mentioning earlier, and how all of these filament presets have to match. All right, so I'll just go ahead and hit slice plate here. And here, as you can see, like the benchy, it's not green like it is in the preview, but it does show you here that it's going to be using the yellow filament, the blue filament, and the white filament. It's going to be 597 tool changes in order to pull this off. You get your total amount of your tower material here, and just know that when you do full spectrum, your waste is going to come in the form of the tower. So you're going to have 28.8 grams of filament just for your tower, but the benchy itself is only going to be 11.23 grams. So that's something that you have to consider as well. So as you can see, it's not too difficult, but I do hope that in the future that they can just, I don't know, pretty it up a little bit. Some of the language that they use there in the slicer, it sounds like something like an engineer would say, and not necessarily what a regular layman would be able to easily understand when they read it one time. But, you know, that's for the future. Hopefully they can get around to doing that. But here's the first result that I'm going to show you up close of this benchy that I made. And initially, the filaments that I had loaded up on here, they weren't really all that conducive to full to full spectrum printing, it was brown and orange and white and some other color. I think it might have been like purple or pink or something like that. But anyway, the amount of different shades that I could create was kind of limited. It was kind of like earth tones in a way. And this sort of lightish, pinkish, brownish color, kind of like a very, very light faded purple almost, is what I decided to print. And I used this Benchy to test it out. Now, one thing that I did when I sent the file over is that I didn't change the layer height. So the layer height was still at 0.2 millimeters, which when it comes to full spectrum is pretty thick. And that means that you can very easily see with the naked eye the different times that the filament changed. In this model, only used two filaments. It was the brown and it was the white. So you can see where the stacking occurred. So it's not very seamless. If you kind of just look at this from afar, you're still going to see the striping, but that color, that sort of really, really palish purple color, you can still see in this model, at least from the whole. But then when you turn it up, now you can definitely see the clearly different color filaments that went into this. So, perhaps not the best example of what full spectrum is capable of, especially since that layer height was so high, but you get the sense of it, right? You know that this color was not loaded up on the printer, and by combining the white and the brown, it ended up coming out with something like this. But the next thing that I tried was just a simple ordinary cube. So for this cube, I actually did load up the colors that would signify CMYK, even though this is not CMYK filament. But I still decided just to load up white and like a hot pink, a yellow, and a light blue to just sort of emulate CMYK as close as I could. And in the slicer, I told it to make this cube green by mixing the appropriate filaments. And I gave it lightning infill because I just wanted to save some time and some material. And this cube printed. But to my surprise, this part is green on this side. And then this part is green on this side. But as you continue to turn the square, now we've got like a sort of greenish blue on the side. And then over on the bottom where the build plate was, now it looks more yellow. And at the top, it still has that bluish green color to it. So, I'm not sure what happened with this cube. If this was some kind of user error, I don't know. I thought the entire thing was going to be green, but I did slice this at a 0.8 millimeter layer height. So when you look at the cube, it's not very easy to see the individual color changes that help to make up the green side of this, or really any side of this. So like I said, I don't know what happened with this as far as the slicing goes and why all of this isn't green. If you know what happened, let me know down in the comments so I can rectify that. But you can just confirm that the green does not exist with the colors that I actually put on the printer. So from that perspective, the full spectrum color mixing, whatever you want to call it, was actually working. But since I didn't get the result I wanted to try one more thing. And that is what's printing right here. Now, this is an actual model that was designed specifically for this color mixing full spectrum kind of a thing. This is a test. And I found this over on Maker World, and I downloaded the 3MF file from there. I loaded it into Flash Studio, changed the profile to the Creator 5, and that profile had all of the different color mixing options already enabled. I didn't have to tell it to do anything. All that information was just imported. So I made sure that I had all of my filaments loaded up in the order that they are on the printer, and I just sent it over to print. And now I'm somewhat convinced, or pretty much entirely convinced, that this color variation probably had something to do with me, because as we look at what's going on with this print, it is coming out exactly the way that I wanted it to. You can see the different variations of the colors in here. There's gradients of colors. We've got purple, we've got green, we've got yellow, we've got pink, and they're different shades. So they're not the exact same color as the filament that is feeding into the printer. And when it's done, you know, of course, I'm going to show you a close up of it and everything. And this gives a much better example of what you can achieve with this type of 3D printing, and the fact that since we're using a tool changer, purge waste is non-existent. So while everyone is very excited about Full Spectrum and where it's going to go in the future, and I'm certainly very interested in it, but I think that if you're looking at this as being like an alternative to actually going out and buying a certain color of filament that you want to use, I don't think that this is the best use for that, because like I said, you are still going to have waste in the form of these prime towers, and you can also have hundreds, if not thousands, of different tool changes as you are printing your model, depending on how big the model is and how complex it is. So definitely think it's one of those things that you would use for a somewhat of a specialized way, but definitely not something that is going to take the place of just buying new filament altogether. Those layer heights are going to be lower. The time to print is going to be longer. The prime tower waste is still present, but my goodness, is it cool to see when it is done. So if you've got a Flashforge Creator 5 and you have tried this, let me know how it all turned out for you. I know that these are winding up at people's doorsteps right now, but yeah, on that newest firmware 1.7.7 of Flash Studio, you can jump in, you can check it out, and hopefully you will have a good experience. So that's going to do it for now. Thank you all so much for watching. Till next time, take care of yourselves, and I'll speak to you soon.